Joining us now on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law. You can, of course, check him out weekday afternoons with SiriusXM Blitz on the SiriusXM NFL radio channel. He is Bruce Murray. Bruce, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Happy to be here. How you doing?
Doing really well. So you and John Kuhn were up there at Packers training camp practice, and you're obviously going around the National Football League, checking out the different sites and practices. Your thoughts on how Green Bay does their training camp practices with the fans and all of that?
Well, I think it's by far the most interesting place to visit. It's so intimate with the fans, the Hudson Center and the little field that's behind it. And, obviously all the fans coming in with the bicycles. It's just different than any other place. And it's different also because of the venue that they play in, which is right across the street. They're all different and they're all somewhat unique. And I apologize for the road traffic because I'm waiting for an Uber to go to Minnesota so we can do the Vikings tomorrow. But it's such a great, intimate environment, and it's just fun to come here every year.
Don't worry, I'm at the Wisconsin State Fair with bands blaring in my ears, so I can't even hear any traffic on your side. I'm just trying to make you out. Okay, so let's talk about Jordan Love. Your thoughts on him? I mean, we've seen him at Family Night this last weekend. Now, maybe not. We'll get to see him against the Jets coming up this weekend. I think people are looking for improvement from Jordan Love. And earlier in the camp, that deep ball was looking awfully pretty from Jordan Love. Didn't look as good at Family Night. How did it look today?
Well, practice was actually, I don't want to say a little slow today. It does seem like we're getting to that time in camp where it's becoming the grind. I think, what is this, day 11 or day 12 and, 8th day in pads. A little sluggish at times, and I think that may have been a little frustrating to the head coach. But we sat with Love for a while, and, he recognizes what's at stake. He recognizes the expectations. I think more importantly than the physical traits that he has, because we know he throws the football well, is he talked about where he is with the mental part of the game and how comfortable he is now at the line of scrimmage and how the game is slowing down. I think people think, all right, you're in year 5, you must be there already. You're not. It always gets better in that part of the game. And I think as that improves, when the game does pick up, when you're playing the really good football teams, you're better prepared to handle some of the critical situations. I think that's where you're going to see the most improvement from Jordan Love this year.
When you talk about this division, Bruce, and you talk about the coaches at the other spots and what each are dealing with, Detroit, they lose their coordinators. Minnesota's playing with an inexperienced quarterback in McCarthy. Obviously, we know about Ben Johnson being a wizard offensively, but Caleb Williams struggles early on. You assume those will get worked out. This coaching staff probably is in the best position right now of the other coaching staffs in the league.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, look, listen, we know what Detroit's going through, obviously, as they transition out of 2 coordinators. Now, Philadelphia went through that, didn't seem to get in their way of success. But, Hackett's part of this team now with a different perspective, coaching as a defensive assistant. You've got continuity on the offensive side of the football. I think they're in great shape. I mean, this roster did not take a lot of hits in the offseason. I think they were subtle in their additions, obviously, with Hobbs, who's going to deal with the injury until the start of the regular season. But the offensive line is going to be better. I think there's a lot of depth up front. I think this team, both from a coaching standpoint and a player standpoint, is well positioned to improve on last year, which, as you said, they got to get better because they didn't beat great football teams last year.
SiriusXM NFL Radio's Bruce Murray. He was at Packers camp earlier today, and he's hosting the Green Bay episode of the channel's NFL Camp Tour Series. You can hear that show, which Bruce hosts along with former Packers fullback John Kuhn, on demand on the SiriusXM app. And you can hear Bruce throughout the year hosting the SiriusXM Blitz weekday afternoons on SiriusXM Channel 88. There's a lot of focus on this Packers defense. They gave Rashawn Gary all that money a couple of years ago. Rashawn Gary's never cracked double digits in sacks. And then there was hope that maybe they'd find somebody to go along with him this offseason. They didn't. Instead, putting all their eggs in the basket, it's seemingly of Lucas Van Ness. What do you think of the front 4 or so of the Packers going into this season?
Well, you've hit on something that we talked about today at camp, and I think I've talked about a lot on my show, and that's that this is a team, despite a huge investment on defense. There are first-rounders all over the place. You mentioned a couple of them. I don't know that there's a guy that you say, we've got a game plan on offense around. Xavier McKinney was an all-pro last year, but nobody plans to offset a safety. He just was a great addition last year. They don't have that guy. This team needs to play great defense collectively. There's no T.J. Watt. There's no Myles Garrett. They were hoping that could be one of those guys that you mentioned. I don't think that's going to happen here. So it's a solid defense that's not sprinkled with superstars or perennial Pro Bowlers, but it can still be very good. But I think there's no mistaking the fact that they don't have that guy that you plan around when you get ready for Sundays.
Jair Alexander was a big part of this defense as well. He's now in Baltimore after he couldn't stay healthy in Green Bay. The Packers go sign Hobbs from the Raiders. He promptly gets hurt and has to have surgery yesterday and is now going to miss 4 weeks, it looks like. What do you think of that Packers secondary as we sit here today?
Well, Hobbs is obviously a big question mark because that was a big offseason acquisition. He does have arthroscopic surgery over the weekend. They're hopeful that he's available for the start of the season. But as you know, look, it's a long season. If it's not week one, then early in the season he'll be available. But, that is an area that they have to prove that they can survive without Jair, who, obviously you're not surviving without him because he wasn't there for most of the season, each of the last two. And I know that, Brian Gutekunst, the idea behind it was that expensive investment for a guy that had limited play. But there were other issues as well. I think to some extent it's easy to move on from that guy who may not have been the best in the locker room. But there's no question, you're going to be, young guys taking reps right now in training camp. They need Hobbs to come back. They need him to be healthy, or I'd be a little concerned with that group.
SiriusXM NFL's Bruce Murray joins us. Follow him on Twitter at Bruce Murray NFL. One last one for you. Where do you see the Packers lining up in the NFC right now as we sit here today?
Well, that too, it's interesting because when you're with the team, and you know this because you focus on them every weekend, in a vacuum, it's a really good football team. Their offensive line has guys that have started a lot of games. Josh Jacobs is terrific. It's a deep wide receiver room. Tucker Kraft could be, a tight end that we're talking about as one of the better in the league as he continues to get better. But as I say to John Kuhn today, those other teams in the division and in the NFC have something to say about it. Detroit's really good. Minnesota, even with the J.J. McCarthy experiment, I think is going to be good with that defense. I think Chicago's improving. Philadelphia is good. We know about the teams out west. San Francisco should rebound. The Rams are good. I think they're in that small group of teams that we expect to be one of those final seven, but those other teams are going to have something to say about it. I still think this team has a chance to compete for a division title. I know Detroit right now is the best talent, but it's hard to duplicate what they accomplished last year. But the one thing we need to see them do, and you know this from watching them last year, they beat the Rams when the Rams were banged up. I think they played without their wide receivers. They've got to prove they can go out and beat a Philadelphia or a Detroit or Minnesota, the teams that they struggled with in their division. I think they're prepared to do that. I'm a little hesitant to say they're at the top of that division right now, but I still think they're one of the teams that's going to be in the team picture when we're talking about those extra games in January.
Does that division get 3 teams in the playoffs?
I think it does, and listen, I'm not in a big minority. I think people are divided on this one. I think Chicago's going to be a much better team this year, not just because of Ben Johnson, but I think everybody's critical of Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams had a very good second half of the season. He went out and played every game. His numbers got better. I think he's going to be better coached this year. I think he's going to be better protected this year. He got sacked, 68 times, I think is the number, and he showed up every Sunday. I think they're going to win their share of football games. I do think 3 go, but those wins are going to be a little tougher to come by this year.
Bruce, next year when you do this training camp tour again, because I'm sure you're going to do it again next year, you need to give yourself a day off, come down here to the Wisconsin State Fair and check this out, man. It is amazing, especially if you like, unhealthy food and so forth, but it's delicious. This is the place to be, Bruce, I'm telling you.
Listen, you have no idea how appealing that invitation actually is. I love those things. I love a day of terrible food, not terrible food, really good food that's terrible for you.
Yes.
If I had the extra time, I would actually take you up on that. Like I said, I'm on the way to the airport going to Minnesota from here. But if that's an outstanding invitation one day, you may be surprised to find me there.
Yes, we're here. So come on out, hang out. Love to see you out here. Bruce, have safe travels to Minnesota, man. Thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Hey, great to be here.